I woke up on Saturday morning and I knew we were getting promoted. I just knew. And I was glass half empty, pessimistic. That's me. So I knew if I had £1 million that day, I would have bet it we were getting promoted. And I drove in. I was living in Wolverhampton. Drove into Mansfield. Got the radio on. I'm having a sing-song. Dead calm, loving it. I got to the ground. I said to the assistant, "We get promoted. We'll win today. We get promoted." And he's looking at me. He can't quite. Is this the same Stuart Watkiss that I've worked with for the last whatever? So far side at Mansfield is the little stand. That's where all the press was. That's where all the press gather. So the press, to be fair, said, any info we get from Plymouth, we'll let you know. So game starts, 3 or 4 minutes, we get a corner. And Adam Murray's on the corner. And they set up the most complicated corner that we do. And I looked at the assistant and I went, what are they doing? This was after yesterday when they couldn't do anything. Yeah. Oh my God, it works like a dream. Ends up, it's a worldy finish, 1-0 up. So the crowd are like, within 2 or 3 minutes, the press shout down, Plymouth are winning 1-0. You're like, fantastic. We score again after about half hour. We go 2-0 up, another corner again, when we couldn't do anything the day before. And within 2 or 3 minutes again, the reporter shout down, Plymouth are winning 2-0.
It's an absolute pleasure to welcome the man affectionately known to many as Skip, Stuart Watkiss. Welcome to the From the Club podcast.
Yeah, nice to be invited on and looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you for taking the time, Stuart, mate. Really appreciate it. For a man with football running through your veins, what other year could you have been born other than 1966? That's right, isn't it?
I have to admit that I was maybe just a tad young to remember the big final, but yeah, it's always nice. Certainly helped me remember my date of birth in my younger years, certainly.
Yeah, well, as we get older, Stuart, we need all the help we can get, can't we, with things like that? I'm always forgetting how old I am.
Absolutely. Every little thing helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. So take us back to the very beginning then, Stuart. What was life like growing up as a kid?
Fortunate, really. Had a real stable and loving home upbringing. My dad, ex-military, loved his football, loved all things Wolverhampton Wanderers. So we started going literally, I think it would be 1971-ish when I was 5. So I literally was a regular at Molineux right the way through my school years, all the way through primary school, secondary school. Went to many away matches as well. My dad ran a Sunday morning pub team, if you like. So my Sunday mornings were very much all amateur football, Sunday morning football. Like many, a Coke and a packet of crisps at the club on a Sunday afternoon, and then back to get Sunday dinner that my mum had prepared while my dad, myself, and my brother, who's a year older than me, had been out to the football. So it was a heavily influenced football upbringing, maybe much to my mum's dismay at times. But yeah, very fortunate, as I say, really loving family and a father that loved football and literally taxied me here, there and everywhere, you know, in my formative years when I started playing football.
Yeah, but I mean, things like that make, you know, stories like your career even more special, because the moment that you found out that Wolves were showing an interest in you as a player, I mean, what do you remember about that, and what do you remember about the family, you know, hearing about that news?
Yeah, it was strange, really. I was a little bit different to the standard sign when you were 16 as an apprentice and, you know, signed professional at 18. I kind of missed out as a 16-year-old. And I played for like a semi-professional club in the Walsall area, Wolverhampton area, Willinghall Town. I played for their youth team. And then from there, I actually signed for Wolves, if you like, a year late as an apprentice. So I only had 1 year as an apprentice at Wolves. Fantastic, fantastic times. You know, to be a Wolves fan, to watch them all through your school period, and then all of a sudden to sign as an apprentice and to be in and around those players firsthand. You know, great players, great players. John Richards was there, Kenny Ibbett, players that I'd literally worshipped through my formative years, and to be in and amongst them was just fantastic. And I think very different from today. I mean, I remember that we had to knock on the door to go into the first team dressing room at Molineux.
Yeah.
You know, it was very much you treated the professionals and certainly the first team players with a massive respect. I think that's the way that it should be anyway. But saying that, the first team players were great with you. You know, they looked after you, they put their arm around you. You learnt so much from them. And added to that, I had a real old school sergeant major of a youth team coach, a fella called Frank Upton, who sadly is no longer with us. And he was just a blessing for any young footballer, especially a centre half. And the lessons and the life lessons he taught me, I'll never forget. And probably the best example of a life lesson is I was very fortunate to make my debut in the first team as a 17-year-old. So still in my first year as an apprentice, if you like.
Yeah.
£25 a week at the time on the old YTS. So not very glamorous. But I remember I made my debut. We played Sunderland at Molineux. It was a 0-0. It was hardly a classic for the football neutral. Played directly against Lee Chapman, who was striker for Sunderland. Drew 0-0. And after the game, I got changed, got my suit on. Thought I was the man around town at that moment in time. I went strolling. I'm not going to say strutting, but maybe I was. I went strolling towards the players' lounge, only to be intercepted by Frank, who asked me where I was going. I said, I'm off to the players' lounge, if that's okay, Frank, see if I can find my family. And at that point, he gave me my brush, and he told me that I had to do my jobs first before I could go and seek anybody out.
Wow.
So I had to literally knock on the door of the opposition, who I'd just played against, Sunderland, knock on the door and ask if I could go in and sweep the changing rooms out. But you look back and it's just a fantastic life lesson. Fantastic life lesson from a great fella and somebody that I owe so much to.
Yeah, I love things like that, Stuart. So you'd been at Wolves for about a year, if I'm right, Stuart, and you get told that you're going to be making your debut. Now, this is top flight football. This would have been obviously before the Premier League, but this is top flight Premier League football.
Top flight, yeah. I was pretty much certain I was playing on the Friday, but wasn't actually told 100%. So I remember going home. And I think on the Friday night, if I remember rightly, I think maybe Southampton-Liverpool was on a Friday night. And as a 17-year-old, you know, I didn't have any nerves. I was fine. Got to the game. Found out I was playing. As I say, I didn't know at that time, but to be fair to Frank, go back to Frank, he had rung my mum and dad up and warned them that I'd probably be playing, and sorted them tickets out in the director's box. I didn't know that. So my mum and dad was there. My brother and my best friend went and got my girlfriend at the time, who became my first wife. She had a Saturday job in the greengrocers. My brother and my best friend went and basically grabbed her from work, took her to Molineux. And as I run out of the tunnel, the first three people that I saw right by the tunnel was my brother, my best friend, and my fiancée or girlfriend at the time. So kind of settles you down as well. It was a nice a nice first view as you ran out onto the pitch.
Yeah. So you said you wasn't nervous pre-match, which is, you said, almost as if all 17-year-olds wouldn't be nervous. I'm not quite sure if that's the
Well,
case.
I think sometimes ignorance is bliss, or
Really?
naivety is bliss,
Yeah.
or what have you. Certainly, if 56, 58 I am now. If someone asked me to do something the equivalent of that, 100% I would be nervous. But I think
Yeah.
going back to those times, as I say, sometimes ignorance, naivety is the best way
Yeah.
to approach it, And as I say, absolutely a day I will never forget. I mean, even though it didn't work out long term for me at Wolves, it's a day I'll never forget. It's something that I'll cherish. I played the week after. Again, as a 17-year-old, we played Arsenal away at that old Highbury. The likes of Woodcock, Marion, and Nicholas. I think that was the front
Right.
three. So
Yeah.
Graham Ricks played, Pat Jennings in goal, David O'Leary, Brian Talbot. Great names. We got beat 4-1. But again, just great memories, and something that I can say that I achieved in a way, and something that I'll just cherish forever.
Yeah, no, for sure. Was you able? You might not have even been thinking about it at the time, but was you able to keep your shirt that you wore for
No,
Wolves?
unfortunately, I have no shirts, no mementos, no anything from my football career. Obviously, it's maybe something I regret now, or it is something that I regret now. But at the time, maybe when you're that young, no, I'm not sure Wolves would have let me keep the shirt at that time, because times were very, very different
Yeah.
to what they are now. And just going back, I mean, as apprentices on a Friday afternoon, if Wolves were at home on the Saturday, our Friday afternoons were literally like the Molineux had to be spotless, and I mean it was like being in the army. And Frank had 3 shiny pennies, and he would hide them throughout Molineux. And he said, if you clean properly, you'll find them. But nobody's going home until they've been found, until all the jobs had been passed. And added on to that, the boot room, everyone had 3 or 4 pros that they looked after. I had John Burridge, the goalie, Andy Gray,
Wow.
the
Yeah.
striker, Kenny Ibbett,
Yeah.
and a fella called John Humphrey. So
Yeah.
4 good players. And those boots literally had to be shining like army boots. And those were the days there was only ever black boots. And it was either Adidas, Puma, Patrick. That was really the 3 makes.
Yeah.
And you had to paint the white stripes on the boot. So first of all, you had to shine them like they were, like you could see your face in them. And then really delicately, you had to paint the white stripes,
Yeah.
or the Puma symbol. And again, nobody went until everything had been passed and everything. And again, it just teaches you discipline, and it's something that I think now clubs have moved away from. And I think it's a mistake. Don't get me wrong, I don't think young lads should be cleaning toilets or anything like that. But certainly they should be responsible for the dressing rooms, responsible for looking after professionals' boots. And again, the professionals always, if you like, looked after us at Christmas time. John Burridge was arguably the best. He took me out one day just before Christmas. He took me to a Puma warehouse, and he just said, "Help yourself."
Really? Yeah.
Oh, and so again, for a 17-year-old, it's fantastic. But also, literally the day before Christmas, he came in and he gave me £50. But he said, "You've got to buy your mum and dad something with that."
Nah, decent. Yeah.
So fortunate to
Yeah.
have a great football upbringing, in and around really good people.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for me, that season Wolves got relegated. The manager left, the assistant manager left, Frank, my youth team coach, left. New people came in. Mate, I lost my way. Maybe lost focus. Maybe getting into the first team at a young age was maybe a little bit too young. But I look back now, there was nobody at the club to put me back on the straight and narrow. Where undoubtedly, Graham Hawkins was the manager, Jim Barron the assistant, Frank, my youth coach. Metaphorically, they'd have given me a clip round the ear, got me refocused, and got me back on the straight and narrow. So ultimately, I have to take responsibility why I didn't make it at Wolves. But I did think that looking back, I lacked the support maybe that a young, impressionable 17, 18-year-old needed. And as I say, within maybe 7 or 8 months of making my debut at Wolves, I was out the door.
Yeah. You mentioned the new manager that came in. That was obviously the very charismatic Tommy Docherty. Was this after Manchester United or before Manchester United?
No, it was after Man United. Yeah, obviously very charismatic. Everybody knew him. He was a household name, a personality, big personality. I can only say, as I find, he certainly wasn't a coach. He wasn't a football coach. And again, I look back at the coaching that time, and there was no real coaching of that time. Again, I'm not putting all the blame on that. If I remember right, I did all the pre-season actually with the first team. Tommy Docherty's first year, I did all the pre-season. I played the majority of the pre-season games, and unfortunately got a little injury literally a week before the season started, so I wasn't available for the first game, and didn't get back close to getting involved at first team level, and found out the hard way, if you like, how tough football can be. And as I say, I found myself out the door. I had a little kind of a trial spell at Walsall, which was a great little club, obviously right on my doorstep again. I have to say they had a really, really good team at the time, and it was always going to be really tough to break in. I think they got to the League Cup semi-final one year, played Liverpool, managed by Alan Buckley, who I later went to work alongside at Grimsby. But at the time, there was nothing doing there. I had a little spell at Crewe. I made a couple of appearances for Crewe, alongside the likes of David Platt and Jeff Thomas, John Pemberton, good players. Dario was the manager. And they actually offered me kind of it was a non-contract. It was a contract, but no fixed length. But looking back now, it kind of broke my heart, the Wolves scenario and the situation. And I didn't accept the offer from Crewe. And I actually then didn't play football for a full 2 years. I just didn't kick a ball for 2 years. My dad had a post office, and I went to work for my father at his post office, a local post office. And as I say, didn't kick a ball for 2 years. You could tell my dad was heartbroken because he put so much into it. Don't get me wrong, we never argued, but you could just see he couldn't really hide his disappointment. And I started playing, looking back now, I started playing with all my friends on a Sunday morning. Wolverhampton Sunday, Division 5, I think it was. And I started playing with all my friends, my uncle as well. It was a typical turn up. The majority of the players hung over, have a fag at half time, go and have a couple of pints after. But what it did do is it brought my enjoyment back of football.
Yeah.
To be playing football with absolutely no pressure, no expectation from anybody, was fantastic. I loved it. And I think word got about then that in local circles and semi-pro circles in and around Wolverhampton, West Midlands, that I was back playing. Obviously, everybody knew of my background and where I'd been. So it wasn't long before decent semi-professional clubs were ringing me up and asking me to play. And then, as I say, I slowly started playing semi-pro on a Saturday, just West Midlands Premier, because by now I had moved up to the head post office in Wolverhampton, and I had to work every other Saturday morning. So that limited me to nationwide. I couldn't do nationwide travel. So I stayed West Midlands area. Almost all of that time was at a team called Rushall Olympic, who are now in the Conference North and doing well. Absolutely loved it there. Loved the social side of it. Loved playing. Loved the people that I was with. Again, playing with no pressure. Just go and play for pure enjoyment was fantastic. And again, I was playing towards the end of one season, and with respect, I was probably recognised as the best Rushall player, but I had a little square up with this lad one game, and he turned around and he called me fatty, and I was like, I'd always been like skinny really, and I couldn't get my head around it. Yeah, fatty, I'm not a fatty. Anyway, I hadn't weighed myself for years and years, and I went home and I asked my ex-wife, have I put weight on? And she said, well, you have really, yeah. I went to work the next day to the post office, asked my colleagues, you put a bit on, Stuart. And from that point, I just decided I was getting really, really fit. So I didn't diet as such, but I cut out all the rubbish. Just had my 3 meals a day, 3 proper meals a day, cut the beer out, cut all the, as you say, chocolate, crisps, whatever, biscuits out. Started doing extra training. And then, luckily for me, pre-season the next year, we played Walsall. I go back to Kenny Ibbott, who was a pro, someone I'd watched all through my school years playing for Wolves. He was now manager at Walsall. And I certainly hadn't kept in touch with Kenny at all. But we played Walsall in a pre-season friendly. On the Tuesday, I had a really good game, fortunately. They rung me up on the Thursday and asked me if I could play for them on the Saturday in another pre-season game at Telford for Walsall, which I agreed, and Rushall very kindly let me play for them. And played against Telford on the Saturday, and they whisked me straight back to the Walsall ground after the game and offered me a 2-year deal. And that's how quickly, if you like, my life changed, how quickly it turned. I'd been away from probably pro football then for 6 years, maybe 7 years. Yeah. So to get a second chance, it was something that I wasn't going to let pass me by. Yeah. Literally, the season started about 10 days after I signed at Walsall. And I just remember that I just determined that I wasn't going to let that pass me by. And I think I ended up getting Player of the Year at Walsall, Supporters Player of the Year at Walsall. And I even won one of the Midlands Player of the Year awards, and I think Dwight York was second, so that makes me giggle somewhat, Yeah. So very fortunate, very, very fortunate to get a second chance in football. But I spent years, if you like, sitting behind the post office counter, looking at other lads that I'd played with and against at youth level. I mean, I was an apprentice with Tim Flowers, who went on to have a great career. So to see Tim do so well and other players that I played against at youth level doing so well, as I say, just to get the second chance, I'll be forever grateful.
Yeah, amazing. Over time these things become caricatured, so I'm not sure if this is actually factually correct, but I think I've been told before that on the Monday you was on the counter in Wolverhampton post office, and was it the Tuesday, literally the day after that, you was playing against Aston Villa in a friendly?
That was right? It. I played on the Saturday in that game against Telford.
Yeah.
I actually went to the post office on the Monday morning, and told them that I'd been offered a deal and I was leaving. Again, forever grateful. The post office let me leave there and then. They didn't want any notice, anything. They just said, no, off you go. So I went straight to training. And then, on the Tuesday, we played Aston Villa in front of a packed Bescott Stadium. Funny enough, that the local press made quite a big thing of it because I'd come from non-league, from Rushall to Walsall for literally a pie and a pint, I think was my transfer fee. And Guy Whittingham had just signed for Villa from Portsmouth for whatever, 1.x million. And I think it was his first game or one of his first games. And obviously we were playing directly against each other. So, they beat us comfortably, I think, as you would expect. And again, funny enough, the assistant manager for Aston Villa was a fella called Jim Barron, who was assistant manager at Wolves when I made my debut all those years ago. So to see Jim was great. And again, ironically, up until a month ago, Jim was assistant at Bath. Helping Jerry Gill. So to see Jim again after all these years was fantastic. And I mean, Jim always looked like $1 million. Always looked like $1 million. But when I saw him, last season, still absolutely in top nick, top form. But so good at his job and so knowledgeable. And maybe we'll touch on that later. It's a little bugbear of mine that the fashion nowadays is all young and upcoming managers. And I get that. But I just see so many, if you like, older football people, maybe like me now, that I believe has still got a lot to offer the game with the knowledge and the experience. But I see a lot of my generation now, I believe, going out the game too early, when I still believe they've got such a lot to offer the game,
Well, funny enough, that was going to be my next question because, it's these scars that you develop throughout your playing career, all of the knocks and all that. You just can't learn that experience in the classroom, can you? You can't. There's not some sort of course that teaches you this stuff. It's the school of hard knocks, isn't it? That you learn through life that gives you the character, like you've been talking about as a youth.
Look, everybody, and in football, you're going to get a right hook. There's always a right hook around the corner. It's coming. You've got to know it's coming. You expect that it's coming, and it's basically how you deal with the right hooks or the left hooks. Can you ride them? Can you dodge out the way of them? If one catches you flush on the chin, can you get back up and get going again? And I'd played for Walsall. I'd had a little spell at Hereford under Graham Turner, another fabulous football man, and Dick Bate, who is probably the godfather of English coaching, FA coaching, I would say, coaching courses. God bless him. Dick's no longer with us. He was assistant. So I had a little spell at Hereford where we got to the playoffs under those two, which was great. But I ended up at Mansfield. Andy King signed me at Mansfield, who was another, you would class maybe old school football person, but his knowledge was second to none. Great personality. And loved my time at Mansfield. Absolutely fantastic. But when I was at Walsall, I fell out with Chris Nicholl, the manager. As it happens in football, people have difference of opinions. I certainly didn't agree with Chris. I don't think Chris rated me as a player. So in those days, you could go and play 2 games for another league club for the reserves, basically, so they could have a look at you if they was interested in signing you. So I was at Walsall. I was out the team. I'd actually twisted my ankle in the reserves and I wasn't fully fit, but I got a call from Preston and said, would he come up and play for our reserves? And, I was desperate to get away from Walsall at the time. So I did. When I got there, David Moyes was a first team player at that point, and I played against Moyesy a lot. always had to pick Moisey up on set pieces. I don't know why. But anyway, I got to Preston. Moisey was taking the reserve team. And a certain David Beckham was playing for Preston reserves that night. Yeah. So again, it's just a little memory that'll stop with you for forever. So I played the reserve game. I played centre half. Beckham played centre midfield in front of me, and I was just amazed by how good he was. I'd never seen anybody strike a ball like he could. He was pinging it 50, 60 yards, all angles, all trajectories, everywhere, all over the pitch. And I'm just thinking, wow, I'm almost forgetting that I'm there to try and get myself a deal. And I'm almost in awe of this 17-year-old lad who's just pinging the ball left, right and centre. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I thought I was getting a deal at Preston. They changed their mind last minute. I didn't get it. Ended up at Mansfield. But when I went back to Walsall after the Preston game, I thought, I can't go back injured. Because I was still struggling. So I started popping painkillers. Literally 6-8 painkillers every day to get me through training. A bit more on match days. I signed for Mansfield, and I'm still taking painkillers to get me through. And I have about 1.5 years at Mansfield. Ended up as captain, but still popping painkillers all the time to get me through training, and that just become the norm for me. And then the one day I got injured playing in the big derby at the time was Mansfield against Notts County. At Meadow Lane. I got injured, was really struggling on the same ankle, and went to see a specialist, and he just told me, he said, "Did you know you broke your ankle?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You broke your ankle." So straight away I knew what he said. Your bone's calcified now. This has happened in your ankle, basically. Time to pack up, time to finish. There was one operation they could try to do, he said, but he said it could have complications later in life, and he advised me against it. And going back to David Beckham, that was the day after he got sent off against Argentina in the World Cup.
Yeah.
It was the day after that I was told that my career was up. Went back to Mansfield. It was the first day of pre-season. That day was the first day of pre-season. And obviously the manager, Steve Parkin, who's Phil Parkinson's number 2 now at Wrexham. They've been together for a long time. Steve Parkin was my manager at Mansfield. They knew that I was finished. And I was very, very fortunate that there and then when I went back and said, look, I'm finished, that's me done. They offered me the youth team job at Mansfield.
Yeah.
So, I was very, very, well, you get a right hook being told that your football career's over, but you've got somebody really good in your corner looking after you and saying, there's a youth team job here for you. Yeah. So I hadn't done any coaching, I hadn't done any of my badges up until that point. And I was told that I was in charge of the under-18, so the apprentices. But basically left alone and basically was told, sort it out yourself. I had to sort all the housing allowances out for the lads that are coming from out of town, the apprentices. I had to basically learn as I was going along. And at the time, we had a chairman at Mansfield, a fellow called Keith Haslam, who wasn't, let's just say, the most popular fellow in the whole wide world, certainly not in Mansfield. And no local businesses would deal with us. So we had no training facilities, and nobody would let us go there and train, even if I said, we'll bring money with us and we'll pay you up front. They just didn't want to do business with the club. We couldn't get a Mansfield or surrounding areas minibus firm to deal with us, to take us to youth team games, because of the relationship the chairman had built up. So it was great in one way, that it was very much sink or swim, and I had to override many things. But so lucky to be offered that chance to start my coaching career, and at the time didn't realise what a fantastic group of players I had, and arguably to this day probably the best group of players that I've ever worked with. And when you look, it's Little Mansfield, and it's Liam Lawrence's first day as an apprentice, who went on to play Sunderland, Stoke, Portsmouth, Republic of Ireland. Lee Williamson played Watford, many championship games for different teams. He played for Jamaica. Bobby Hassel had a 10-year career at Barnsley. Alice Baptiste,
Yeah.
Jake Buxton, 500 game Derby captain in the playoff final. I mean, this is Little Mansfield, and it's lads that had been let go by bigger clubs who deemed not good enough. And it's funny, last week, because I've not been working, as you're bouncing off the wall some afternoons, which I am, I thought I'd try and, if you like, add up the combined totals of the players that I'd worked with at youth level and under 21 level. And I think it's getting towards the 13,000 senior professional appearances now.
Yeah.
So, and I suppose the modern ones who are still playing is, I worked with Tom Kearney for 3 years at Hull as 17, 18, 19-year-old. I worked with Connor Townsend, who's at Ipswich. Really, really good lad. Sonny Bradley, who's just gone to Wickham from Derby on loan. Sonny, I had, so fortunate I had Ryan Bennett at Grimsby, who's just come to the end of his career. So
Nicky Featherstone was on there, wasn't he?
Fed was there, yeah, 100%. Fed was great. So, but don't get me wrong, first and foremost, the reason these lads have made it is because of those lads and their dedication, hard work, and ability and everything. But you'd like to think that you played a little part in it and pointed them in the right direction. And what pleases me is that many of them, went to have that 400, 500, 600 game careers. It wasn't just they were here for a season or 2 seasons. They had that longevity, and you like to think that you taught them good habits. You taught them the game as well. But certainly good habits, what was needed to be a professional footballer. But saying that, I'm still just as proud of the lads that didn't make it. And I see on Facebook, and I've got many of them on Facebook and social media, that have gone on to be successful in other careers.
Yeah.
And I'm just as proud of those, really. And I had, and maybe we'll touch on it again later, I struggle with mental health, and I don't hide it. I don't shy away from it. Normally when I've not been working has probably been at my low points. And I was at a particular low point 2 or 3 years ago. I wasn't working. And one of the lads who didn't make it in football, who's very successful now in finance, in the finance world, just sent me a message out of the blue and basically just said, I want to thank you for everything that you've done. You install things in me that I've never forgotten, toughness, blah, 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 blah. And it meant the absolute world to me, the absolute world to me. I don't mind saying that I shed a little tear. And I've had other messages like that, I have to say. And, sometimes when everything is not perfect or not as you would want it in your world, to get messages like that just sometimes mean so much. And it was a little bit like that, when I left Eastbourne. I was genuinely wow, gobsmacked and touched by the messages that I'd got from, say, Simon, the owner, and Alan, the CEO, Adam, the manager, the players, even a couple of the stewards come back with messages, and I'm just like literally
Yeah.
blown away, you know. And it meant so much to me that at the end I had maybe about 10 months at Eastbourne, but to to go away and feel like that you kind of made an impression and hopefully improved football aspects of the club. Sometimes that's worth more than any money or anything.
Yeah. You
So
say
I'm
hopefully.
forever grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You say
forever
hopefully,
grateful.
Stuart. I mean, it was almost a year ago, wasn't it, where you guys come in, you and Adam come in, and there weren't many. Even the most optimistic fans were looking at the results, looking at the league table, and thinking, you guys have got
But,
a
well,
huge job on your hands.
we played more. I think 3 or 4 games more than everybody else around
Yeah,
us.
that's right.
I
Yeah,
think we were
yeah,
maybe half a dozen points from safety, but
yeah,
3 or 4 more games than everybody else. And Adam was a player that I signed as an 18-year-old when I was Mansfield manager. Adam was a Derby player when we took him on loan, and Adam came in and played a real big part of us getting promoted that year. He scored some important goals. Scored some important goals for us. Uh, and so because of that, Adam went back to Derby and played, and he had his career as well. Um, and so I'd always followed Adam, like I had with all my other ex-players. Um, Maybe running to him occasionally at games, and would always, have 2 or 3 minutes chat or whatever. But wasn't particularly close to Adam or anything like that. But was very aware of what he'd done and where he'd been, and saw he was doing well, coaching and managing. So to have the opportunity, if you like, to go and help him out down there, I just thought, why not? I'd come back from India. I'd been in India with Adi Boothroyd, working in the Indian Super League. I'd had a few months off. I was ready to get back to work. Uh, in fairness, I'd never worked as low as that in England, down the pyramid.
yeah,
Uh, but I have to say the standard didn't bother me one bit. The grounds didn't bother me one bit. In fact, I have to say I genuinely enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I found the lads fantastic to work with, and I found Adam fantastic to work with. And by the way, I've worked in Asia, I've worked in Europe, I've worked obviously in this country at all levels. I've worked from Premiership, Championship, League One, League Two, Conference, and now Conference South. Adam's the best coach I've worked with.
yeah,
The best,
yeah,
the most natural, very quick football brain. I used to think I could watch a game and analyse what's going on and think, well, I would do this and I would do that and I would do that. And I have to say, to start with, Adam would say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I'd do that. And then 10 minutes later, I'm standing there thinking, you clever so and so.
yeah,
He's got a very, very quick football brain. He sees things. He's got his way of playing that he believes in, which is fantastic. My first morning or my first afternoon, I got there. Muzza went, come with me, took me into his office, and he went, this is the way we're playing with the ball. And he showed me some clips, and he went, bop, 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 bop. And this is the way that we close down without it. And he showed me some clips, bop, 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 bop. And I'm thinking, no one's ever done that to me in football. No one's ever. And it was so clear, and he had so much belief in what he wanted to do and the way that he wanted to do it. You couldn't help but be impressed by him. You couldn't
yeah,
help but. And then obviously over time, you then get to know how he's thinking, how his brain operates. But Yeah, he's a very talented coach stroke manager. I think he's destined, I think, for good things.
Yeah,
It'll be fantastic if it's with Eastbourne and Adam can progress together.
yeah,
And as I say, I genuinely wish everybody down there associated with the club nothing but the best. And it's a bit funny, really, because I've got this thing about, and I spoke to players, and I spoke. If you're a player and you're not in the team, I do not care who you are. You want the team to get beat. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you love the club. Human nature. If you're a player and for whatever reason the manager leaves you out the team, you want that team to get beat. And I found in my coaching career, especially when you've been sacked as a manager, and it obviously happens to us all, you get sacked as a manager and you do have bitter feelings. So
yeah,
you kind of move on from the club and you think, I hope they get beat now. I
yeah,
hope they get beat now.
yeah.
I said to Adam, this is the first time I've left the club and I genuinely want the club to win and do well.
Yeah,
It's probably the first time in my career that
yeah,
I've left the club. And don't get me wrong, you don't wish the clubs any harm or anything like that because
yeah,
of the supporters and you're built up. But human nature, I
yeah.
think, everybody wants to be missed, don't they? Everyone wants to be
Of course.
valued. Everybody wants to be missed. And when you're not in the team, Walsall got a promotion under Chris Nicholl, and for the second half of the season, I wasn't in the team.
Yeah,
I fell out with him. I wasn't playing, and that's a tough place to be. That when the team's doing so well and winning, and everybody's buzzing and flying, and they're coming on Monday morning, and everybody, the atmosphere is fantastic as it should be, but you don't feel part of it, because you're not playing, and
yeah,
that's a tough gig, and part of management, and I think Adam's really good at this. Going back to it, how you keep the players on side who are not in the 11 or the 15 or 16, how you keep those players on side goes a long, long way to whether you're going to be successful or not.
yeah, yeah,
It does. And Adam seems to have cracked it. You can tell they've got a great respect for him. He likes a laugh and a joke. He likes a bit of banter, but I think the players are so well aware that there's a line, and if they cross it, he's coming down on them. So, yeah, very impressed with Adam, I have to say, and very, very impressed with literally everything Eastbourne Borough FC. The Simon's a great fella. They've got this project. It's a fantastic project to be involved in. So hopefully, they can go on and have great success.
yeah. Just to close the loop, because there'll be some people listening that won't actually appreciate the job that you guys actually done. Because we mentioned when you first come on board a year ago, the club looked destined for relegation. Although not many people were wanting to say that,
Mm.
we were obviously being optimistic. When you left, I mean, I think the club were 2 or 3 points away from top spot.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment, really, looking back, is if we could have won that last game at Maidstone, or my
Yeah.
last game, I think we would have gone top or equal top.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd been thinking it for some time. I was struggling to get home. I think we came back late June, and by the end of November, I think I'd seen my wife literally for 6 or 7 days.
Yeah.
In that period, I hadn't seen my 2 sons, and I hadn't seen my 2 grandchildren. So, I was thinking, okay, and it was a massive call for me, because even though I knew I had to come home, and I knew I had to start seeing my family. It wasn't right that I wasn't seeing my family. I'd always said, because of my football career, I miss my 2 lads growing up, really.
Yeah.
And I always said that I wouldn't miss my grandchildren growing up, but I have been. So I knew the right decision was to come home and to see my family. and I was missing my family as well. So I knew that that was the right decision. But as we touched on earlier, I'm 58 now, so the guarantees of getting another suitable, if you like, football job, I'm very aware that it might not happen. Uh, I believe that I've still got something to offer the game.
Yeah, sure.
Genuinely, without thinking I'm a Jose Mourinho or a Trapattoni or whatever. I genuinely believe that I've got something to help the game, and I genuinely believe that I can go into a club and make that club better, improve the club. I've worked in all departments. I've worked in the academy. I love youth. I love the apprentice age group and the under-21s, because I think it's just a vital age group for developing footballers. I love the first team environment. I've done a spell in recruitment as well at Aberdeen. So I've kind of worked in all departments, if you like, and seen firsthand how they operate. I openly admit that I'm not the most technical in terms of laptops and software. Don't get me wrong, I can get my way around a laptop and everything, but I still believe firmly. I love technology, and I love what it brings to the table, and I love data, but I still believe that all the real important work is done out on the grass. It takes time and patience, but that's where I believe footballers are made and teams are made, and all the technology, data, absolutely vital, and the experts that come with it are vital. But that's in support of what goes out on the grass or the AstroTurf in many cases nowadays. So I have to wait and see now. I knew the period that we're in now would be really difficult for me when I made the decision to leave at the end of November, because obviously I knew I could get about in December. My youngest son's at Ayr United. He's a fitness coach up there. So I went to Scotland to see my son. My other lad's in Wolverhampton. He's doing well in his business, but I went to see my grand. So, and then you've got the build up to Christmas. So I knew, the build up to Christmas would be something to look forward to. Time with the family, fantastic. But I knew January would be quite tough because, the Christmas celebrations have died down. And I'm kicking my heels a little bit in the fact that I'm ready to work now. I want to work now. But in an ideal world, I want something where I can be at home, or certainly be at home for 2, 3, 4 days a week.
Yeah. And home for you. And home for you, Stuart, is obviously in Grimsby, in case anyone's watching and they don't know that, right? So located
our home is Grimsby, so in the north, but anywhere northern England, anywhere Midlands, in and around Wolverhampton. My problem really, from a job point of view, football point of view in Grimsby, there's not many clubs about, of the quality of club that you would like to be working. You've got Grimsby, Scunthorpe, Lincoln, maybe Doncaster, the Sheffields and our Leeds. But if you like, under that, really good semi-pro clubs or nationwide conference clubs, there's not that many around, So if a football job comes up, I hope it does. As I say, I still want to work in football, but I'm very aware now that hopefully it can tie in with my family life, and it can all blend into one. And if it doesn't, then obviously I've got to come up with a plan B. I'm currently looking at buying a CrossFit gym up here. for something completely different. So in the early stages of negotiations on that, obviously that'll determine whether I do, whether I don't. But
Yeah.
that appeals to me as well, something a little bit different. But yeah, certainly I would like to carry on my football journey. I don't feel ready to finish yet. I still, as I say, I still think I've got something. I hope the spell at Eastbourne proves to people or gets people believing that I might be able to do a job. I don't like. I still have ambitions of being a manager myself again. I always wanted to go back to there. Maybe the truthful part or the realistic part. If someone wants to say what's your best position, maybe my best position is an assistant manager to a younger manager.
Yeah.
Where that younger manager can just lean on me a little bit and experience. But again, we just have to wait and see. I mean, I've been very fortunate that I've had. I got back into it at 26, so I'm 58 now. So I've had, if you like, more or less 32 years in professional football. I've had some spells, 2 or 3 spells where I've been out of work for a few months. I found that really hard. I have to be honest. Found that hard from a mental well-being point of view. Struggled with kind of a self-respect, self-worth, almost craving the pressures that football brings, almost craving those pressures, and kind of felt lost and worthless not working. And as I say, I've had some tough times, but again, like we spoke about earlier, it's right-handers, isn't it? You're getting right-handers, left-handers, and it's dodging them, dealing with them, getting back up when you get knocked down. I'm still here.
Stuart. Exactly that, and I think we're all testimony to when we do get caught with them. We can often look back and actually see how they've actually, in one way or another, actually benefited as that experience, although it might not have been pleasant at the time. These bad experiences, do tend to make you stronger. And I mean, there's 1,000+ people in Eastbourne that would all, give you an absolute glowing reference for the job that you guys have done. And I just wanted to quickly pick up on that, Stuart, as well, because, we obviously spoke about the league position as well. And as you know, I'm a season ticket holder at Boroughs for the fruit of your labours, firsthand. And one thing that everyone can say as well is those players that were recruited, they were all getting better. The players were coming in, and through the coaching, they were developing. And you can mention so many different names of players that have come in and done a good job. When you sort of evaluate the squad and look at who's in there at the moment, you've obviously coached at every level. Do you see any players at Borough right now who could make that step up and potentially go on to play league football?
Yeah, I do. It's the younger ones. You look at Brandon.
Yeah.
You look at Courtney. You look at Cameron. They're the ages that you think can kick on. They can kick on. They've got youth or age on the side. They've got ability. But I think at the moment they're in a really good place because they're getting coached by a really good group of people. He doesn't waste a session, really, Adam. He doesn't waste a session. He's very, very focused on, as you say, sessions that, and rightly so, that make players better. And I always thought when you do a session, will the players enjoy it? Yes. Will they get anything out of it? Does it improve them? If it's a tick, tick, tick to those questions, then that's what you should be asking yourself all the time. So yeah, I think there's players there that have the ability to kick on, and like we said, with Adam, certainly Adam has the ability to work at a higher level. But it would be fantastic for Eastbourne if they all move up the pyramid
Oh, for sure.
together. And, you know, they're certainly not far off now, are they?
No.
They're doing fantastic in the fact that they're not conceding any goals, which is brilliant. Obviously, everybody knows they've got to score more. I think my last conversation with Adam was striker number 10. What was needed, I think they've now got the personnel certainly at the back with the defenders that, you know, the centre halves that they've got, and you've still got Finney to come back in, haven't you? You've still got the captain to come back, Brad, to add to the defence. So the defence, I think, is really strong. The centre halves, the wing backs, Sess and Courtney, and I forget his name now. Invincible. They're of the quality that you would like, so that you can always perm 2 from 3 if you like, because Courtney can play and Seth can play on either side. So you're very fortunate in that. I think the midfield's decent, centre midfield, and especially now Jack Clark's back, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah.
I think they're strong. George had that great little spell where he scored a lot of goals very quickly. Alfie's kind of almost a throwback to the old-fashioned centre forward, but I always believe that Alfie needed somebody up there with him to play alongside him rather than play on his own. And it's just those number 10s, and you know they've all got ability. Jaden and Classy and Finn, Ballard, McBride, they've all got ability. Classy's got that little bit of something that maybe he can just produce something out the blue that nobody else at the club can do. But he needs to rock it up his backside, I think. But talented footballer. So fully understand why the gaffer is playing Classy. I probably would play Classy as well, because I just think he has that something that nobody else can do. Not just at Eastbourne, but almost certainly in the league. He's got something. So I think they're very close. You know, I think they're very, very close. I know Adam is very aware of what's needed. I see that he's brought a striker in this week, or he's brought a couple of strikers in recently.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can hit the ground running, and it's literally a couple of results, isn't it? A couple of results, and they're back at top of the league, or they're back in second place. But you know, Torquay are looking strong, aren't they? Maidstone are charging. I always said from the start of the season that I always said if you finish above Boreham Wood, you'll win the league. I still think Boreham Wood have the strongest squad in the league.
Yeah.
I think overall, in terms of depth of the squad and the players that they have there, I think they're about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
So there's 3 teams that, you know, you've got to finish above if you want to get out the division. And then you've got your Dawkins, you've got your Truros, who are different. Truro much more reserved, very, very organised off the ball. They'll almost, it's unfair to say, bore you to death, or they just grind out results. They're good at what they do. They're good at the way they play. John Askey's a very good manager. So, and then you've got Dorking that can be anything. You know, the manager is a little bit off the cuff. He's a personality. You have to give him great credit for what he's done at that football club. And I like the team. I like the way the team plays as well. So I've got to say, I found the standard really, really good, and the majority of the teams wanted to play.
Yeah,
you know, different formations, different styles, but look to play, look to get on the ball, look to play through midfield, and it surprised me how good it was. Really, I have to say, I didn't quite know what to expect, but but thoroughly enjoyed the football side of it. It's just, I've said to people up here, it was the right job at the right time. It was just the wrong location for me
That's right.
personally.
Yeah.
You know,
Just,
it's
just want to make just want to make sure that people know, because if there is anyone listening from a club that could be suitable for your next move, Stuart, what is the best way for somebody to be able to find you and to get in touch with you? I know you're on LinkedIn. Would that be the right place?
yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. You know, I'm not hard to access. You know, I've got a Facebook page. I'm on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So anything like that. You know, like I've said to a couple of people, you know, any qualms, any questions, speak to Simon at Eastbourne, speak to Alan at Eastbourne, speak to Adam at Eastbourne. You know, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of high-profile managers as well, like Nigel Pearson and Craig Shakespeare, God bless him, Nick Barmby, Alan Buckley, 1,000 league games as a manager, Brian Horton, 1,000 league games as a
Well, yeah.
manager. You know, these kind of people, I've learned so much off, but I'm pretty certain that they'd all kind of. I'd like to think they would speak well of me as a person, of my work ethic, and of my knowledge. So as I say, let's see if the phone goes or if the phone doesn't go. But life goes on, whatever way. Yeah, it was a tough decision to make to leave Eastbourne, but still believe it was the right one, even though it was a very, very hard one. But sometimes the right decisions are the hardest ones. Are the hardest ones to make, you know.
Yeah. Well, Stuart, we're certainly all cheering you on, mate, and very excited to see what door does open up for you next. We're just going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to come back and ask you the signature and from the club questions.
Okay. I'm definitely a glass half empty type of guy, definitely. And we had to better Cheltenham's result on the last day of the season to get promoted. We were at home to Carlisle. Cheltenham were away at Plymouth, and Plymouth had already won the league. So you're kind of thinking, you know, are they going to be truly at it? But if we matched Cheltenham's result, they would go up. We had to better Cheltenham's result. Anyway, Paul Stuart rung me up on the Thursday, Plymouth manager, and he said, Stuart, I promise you, if you beat Carlisle on Saturday, you'll get promoted. He said, we will beat Cheltenham. He said, we'll beat them, I promise you. He said, I've got into my lot, we will beat them. I don't think Steve Cottrell was his favourite person in the whole wide world. I'll just put it like that. I've been very diplomatic there. So he said, you'll beat them. If you beat them, you get promoted. So for me, fantastic. That's all I wanted to hear. So I told the lads on the Thursday what Paul Sturrock had said. So they were up for it. On the Friday, we practiced set pieces on the pitch, and we were abysmal. And I mean, there was no against nobody. So we just had the 11 players that were starting, corners, free kicks against nobody. We were all over the shop. So I tried to make a joke of it. Come on, lads, we'll go in. It'll be all right on the night. Give it all that, blah, blah, blah. I got up to the office. I was like, oh, my God, what about our set pieces? I know. Anyway, on the Saturday, I woke up on Saturday morning and I knew we were getting promoted. I just knew. And I was glass half empty, pessimistic. That's me. So I knew if I had £1 million that day, I would have bet it we were getting promoted. And I drove in. I was living in Wolverhampton. Drove into Mansfield. Got the radio on. I'm having a sing song. Dead calm, loving it. I got to the ground. I said to the assistant, "We get promoted. We'll win today. We get promoted." And he's looking at me. He can't quite. Is this the same Stuart Watkiss that I've worked with for the last whatever? So far side at Mansfield is the little stand. That's where all the press was. That's where all the press gather. So the press, to be fair, said, any info we get from Plymouth, we'll let you know. So game starts, 3 or 4 minutes, we get a corner. And Adam Murray's on the corner, and they set up the most complicated corner that we do. And I looked at the assistant and I went, what are they doing? This was after yesterday when they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it works like a dream. Ends up, it's a worldy finish, 1-0 up. So the crowd are like, within 2 or 3 minutes, the press shout down, Plymouth are winning 1-0. You're like, fantastic. We score again after about half hour. We go 2-0 up, another corner again, when we couldn't do anything the day before. And within 2 or 3 minutes again, the reporters shout down, Plymouth are winning 2-0. You're like, okay, fantastic. Second half, we're in total control. I think Carlisle, with respect to them, hadn't won in about 8 games or 9 games, hadn't scored in about 5 games. So we're in complete control of the game. The crowd's gone strangely, like, really, really quiet. It's like the game's a nothing game. We're in control. We're never going to lose it. Crowd's really quiet. And then with about 2 or 3 minutes to go, the place just took off all of a sudden. They shouted down from behind me, Plymouth have won 2-0. And I think at that point, the linesmen, literally, those were the old-fashioned days where they put the boards up, not electric, just with a number on to say, I think he put something like 3 minutes up. So honestly, for the 3 minutes, the place was bouncing. It's the best feeling that you'd ever have in football because you've done it and you know they're not scoring. So for 2 or 3 minutes, you just stand at the side of the pitch and it's just the best feeling in the world. And the ref blows the whistle, they run on and everything, celebrations. But the best part of the day was to go out into Mansfield on the night and just to see how much it meant to the town.
Yeah.
It was like, it was just the best. It was just the best to see people, in different clubs and pubs and different people in the street just celebrating. And that's what will just stick with me for forever. I still haven't matched that feeling in football. I've had great individual little, when I was with Bangladesh and we played India in front of 80,000 in Calcutta was something again you never forget. But just that day and seeing what it meant to football supporters is exactly what you're in football for. Yeah. Exactly what you're in football.
I mean, you've done such a great job of explain that. I mean, as you're describing it, I'm feeling like I'm there, and I can knowing the Stags fans like I do. I can even hear the noise. Amazing. You mentioned earlier on in our interview, obviously, like your mental health and how that you struggled with that at various seasons of your life as well. How do you think these huge highs that you've just described? Is there something, Stuart, where obviously it's so hard to then replicate those highs in the normal world, isn't it? After football.
Yeah.
Do you think that contributes to it somehow in terms of not being able to get to those highs that you had in football outside of it?
Yeah. I mean, I think with me, when I was at work, it was almost like this worthless feeling or self-respect, self-worth. And it was almost like, for me personally, it was like, hang on, you used to have a job that mattered. It mattered to people, whether you was a football manager at first team level, and obviously the results matter to people. And when you're a youth coach and you're trying to develop youngsters to have a career, it mattered to people. It was important, rightly or wrongly. That's the way that I felt. So then, not to have any focus, not to feel important, not to feel like you were needed, if you like. Certainly, football don't owe me a living or anything, and I have no divine right to be working anywhere. But you had this like you mattered. You had this self-worth and self-respect that you were doing something that mattered. And ultimately, what I have learned is it's only a game of football at the end of the day. You know, there's far more important things. I've had a son that has had a battle against depression, and he turned to cocaine and he turned to gambling. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Not a football result on a Saturday afternoon. It does matter, of course, but in comparison,
of course,
it doesn't matter. You know. Again, my son, he's 8 years clean now, and he still goes to all his classes, and he's very prominent in his classes now, and he's one of the main people who's the sponsor for other people. That's reality. That's what really matters, not a football result on a Saturday afternoon. So even though we're desperate to win, and we will do all we possibly can to win, and we're disappointed if we don't win, and overjoyed if we do win, and relieved as well, because sometimes it's not enjoyment when you win, it's just purely relief. In comparison, there's a lot more important things in life than football. And if Eastbourne don't get promoted at the end of the season, life still goes on, the sun will still come up, there's still a football club there with everything to play for the next season, you know. And like I said to you before we started the interview, I lost my sister-in-law over Christmas with a heart attack completely out of the blue. That matters.
Yeah.
People's well-being and health, that matters.
Of course.
Those are the important things, the real important things. But it doesn't stop us from being desperate to win at football and be successful at football. But now I certainly can put it into perspective, where I couldn't before. I couldn't take defeat before. So when I was Stags manager, if we got beat on a Saturday night, I literally could not speak to, no wonder she's my ex-wife now. I could not speak to her. I could not watch Match of the Day on telly. I couldn't wake up on a Sunday morning and look at the Sunday papers. I couldn't watch the football on a Sunday. I couldn't handle defeat. But I knew when I went to work on Monday morning, I had to be okay because I set the tempo at the club. But that took its toll, obviously, as you can imagine, on my marriage.
Yeah, of course.
Hence ex-wife, you know. And my ex-wife was a nurse. And again, another great little story is we got beat one Saturday. I went home, I was sulking, I wouldn't speak to her. She asked me once, "Are you okay?" And I said, like, just leave it. She asked me twice, "Are you okay?" And I said, well, just leave me be. Third time she asked me, and I didn't want to talk. She just went, "Do you know what I've done today?" And I'm pretty sure I've told a 15 or 16-year-old girl that her mom's going to die. That's what I've done at work today. You've lost a football match. You got nowhere to go, really.
Yeah.
You got. So it's things like that. Yeah, it's puts it all perspective. I mean, Adam told everyone when I was coming down to Eastbourne that I was the scariest manager that he'd ever worked with. He said he's the scariest manager I've ever worked with, and he was building me up to all these lads, all the players. While I look out.
I'd heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's scary. I've not lost my temper for 20 years now. I've not lost my temper for 20 because life, innit? Life doesn't mean I'm any less passionate. It doesn't mean that I don't care less. It doesn't mean, but I'd like to think I have got a bit of perspective and reality now. So we'll see. But yeah, still desperate to work in football. Still desperate to succeed. I just think I bring a little bit more of a balanced approach now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stuart. I don't know if you've got time to tell us. I was going to say it's a funny story. I'm sure you didn't find it funny at all at the time, in terms of when you left Mansfield. I heard you talking about it on the Stags podcast the other.
Oh,
In terms of,
yeah.
you'd left, but you hadn't been quite told. You hadn't been told that
Well,
you left officially.
yeah, I mean, again, I knew we played Port Vale away on the Saturday, and we got beat 4-2, I think. And the fans were hammering the chairman. And I said to my assistant at the side, I went, "We'll get the sack Monday." And he looked at me and he went, "They're not hammering you, they're hammering the chairman." And I went, "Yeah, I know exactly. He's got to do something now." So I knew I was getting the sack. So I got in Monday morning, started clearing my desk. Chairman comes in, sacks me, said, "Blah, blah, blah, blah. Keith Curle's coming in this afternoon." And bearing Keith Curle sat next to him in the director's box for my last 3 home matches. So that, I know, very poor, I think, on all accounts. So right, okay. So I said, okay, let me ring the League Managers Association up, John Barnwell at the time. So I did. So I said, "John, I've just been sacked." And he said, "Well, what you got to do, Stuart, is you've got to go back in, you've got to see him, and you've got to ask for a letter of dismissal. Legally, he's got to give you a letter of dismissal." So I said, "Okay, thank you." Went in, saw the chairman. I said, "Chairman, you've got to give me a letter of dismissal." And he went, "No, I haven't." And I said, "I've just spoke to John Barnwell. He told me by law you've got to give me a letter of dismissal." He said, "Well, I've not sacked you." And I said, "Well, what have you just done? You just told me Keith Curle's coming in this afternoon." And he said, No. It's you've left by mutual decision. And I went, No. I said, "You sacked me, and now mutually we are trying to sort out the financial part of the contract, the financial package, the severance, whatever you want to call it." No. I said, "Look, I'm officially asking you, will you give me a letter of dismissal?" "No." And I went, "Okay, fine." I ring John Barnwell up again. I said, "What you want? Give me one, John." He said, "Well, if he's saying that and you haven't resigned and it's not mutual, you're going to have to turn up for work tomorrow." Huh. So I did. So I got in really early the next day, really early. And I told the assistant to come as well. So I got in really early, and we're like going through the motions of planning for training, and the chairman comes storming in. "What are you doing?" "Planning training, chairman." So, "You haven't sacked me. I've not resigned. So I'm planning training." And a few expletives, and he said, "Get yourself off to so-and-so hotel." So I kind of just went, "Let me speak to John Barnwell." So I rung John up and I said, "He's asking me to go to this hotel, John." And he said, "Well, if your chairman's asking you to go to that hotel, you've got to go." I said, "Okay, fine." So I went, and to be fair, the chairman come and met me, and we sorted it out, if you like. And actually, as I was leaving to go to the hotel, I crossed Keith Curle on the stairs, because the office was upstairs at Mansfield. I actually crossed Keith Curle on the stairs. And I said, "Keith, he'll do this to you." I said, "Whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, he'll do it to you at some point."
Yeah.
And he did, because towards the end of Keith's reign, it was Carlton Palmer sitting next to the chairman in the director's box. And they were all in the same drinking school in Sheffield. The chairman, Carlton Palmer, Keith Curle, Chris Woods, the goalkeeping, Chris Waddle. Because when he first offered me the job as manager, the chairman, he asked if I would have Chris Waddle as my assistant. And I just went, "I don't know Chris Waddle. Obviously, I know who he is, but I don't know Chris Waddle. I don't know what he thinks of football. I don't blah, 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 blah." But they were part of the drinking squad in Sheffield. But I have to temper that, because he wasn't the most popular. fella in Mansfield, but he still gave me my chance.
Yeah.
He still gave me my chance. He still gave me the chance to manage at Football League level. So, again, I've got to be grateful for that. After we got promoted, we made plans for, obviously, the division above. But that summer, and again, it's not his fault, ITV Digital collapsed and all the money that were promised to come into clubs didn't come into clubs. So, that wasn't his fault. So again, it would be very wrong of me to blame him. But I had a meeting with the chairman about 4 or 5 days after we got promoted about the budget for the season after, because ITV Digital, if I remember correctly, had just come out, it wouldn't be available. And I actually said to my staff, literally 4 days after we got promoted, I'll be gone by Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was.
Yeah.
And that's pretty scary. And we had a torrid injury list as well. I think we started the season with 10 missing, if I remember rightly. And I think within about 3 weeks, I think we were up to 15 or 16 missing, which I defy. I defy anybody to cope with that. One last story I've got. We had all these injuries. This is the last story I tell you, because I know I can go on. We had all these injuries. And all pre-season, we kind of played 4-4-2. And we didn't have any fullbacks going into the first game of the season. So I literally invented a formation on the Thursday night. I thought, what am I going to do? So I've come up. It was something like 3 at the back. It was a diamond in midfield, 7. It was a striker, 8. An out-and-out left winger, and 1 floating about on the inside right channel. So I went in on the Friday morning. I wrote the team on the board, and I said to the assistant, we're playing that on tomorrow. And he looked at me, and he went, you mad? With an expletive in there. Are you mad? I went, no. I said, look, listen to me. They're all more or less in the positions. I'm not got an out-and-out square peg in a round hole. I know the formation's skewy, but they're more or less playing in the positions. I said, we'll have a look at it in training this morning. So we played the youth team, and the youth team murdered us. Oh, mate, they murdered us, the youth team. Murdered us. So we're driving back to the ground after training, and he went, you're not playing that, are you? And I went, yeah, I'm playing it. I'm going to play it. I don't care. I'm going to play it. So we played it, and we played, by coincidence, Plymouth, who had got promoted with us. So we played on first day of the season, the next season. Anyway, after 90 minutes, we're 4-1 up. And we have murdered it. It's like, it is murder. It's 4-1. Anyway, they score something like the 92nd and 94th minute. It finishes 4-3. We win 4-3. And they come up afterwards, Paul Stuart and Kevin Sutton, and just went, what formation did you play? And I just started laughing. I said, I don't quite know. Really. So, but that was us that season. We could score, but we could conceded more. Conceded more. And I got the sack, I think, midway through December, and I never had a fullback that season. I never had one fit fullback at any stage that season. Yeah. And I don't think I ever got to it being less than 10 players missing.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, crazy.
So, yeah.
Stuart, amazing.
Traveling to a restrictive country with internet censorship? If you want to access your country's websites and content you love securely, a VPN is the answer. With just a few clicks, NordVPN changes your virtual location. You can enjoy your favorite websites and services securely, as if you're home. Choose from over 5,000 servers in 60 countries and surf the internet with no restrictions.
Stuart, as you know, as a business, we're all about official signed memorabilia. So these last few questions are all memorabilia related. Are you ready?
I am ready, but not confident, but I'm ready.
Well, Stuart, have you ever asked anyone for their autograph in person before? And if so, who?
No, and I will never, ever ask anyone for their autograph.
you was shoulder to shoulder with David Beckham, wasn't you?
For one game only, I was shoulder to shoulder with Dave. I don't know. It's something I would never ever ask anyone for an autograph. I don't know why. I don't know if that means that I think I'm inferior to them or anything like that. But I will never ever ask anyone for an autograph.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
You mentioned obviously being at Wolves and the fact that you didn't have your shirt from Wolves, and I don't think you got the programme either, have you, from those two games? Have you got the programmes?
I've got. Oh, I'll tell you what I have got. My mum, God bless her, when she passed, and my dad passed a few years later, when we cleared the house out, my brother found an old scrapbook with all old newspaper cuttings that my mum had collected, but I didn't know about that. So I have got a little bit to look back on.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah.
So I have got a little bit. Yeah, I have got a little bit to look back on.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned as well you was a Wolves fan growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
Who was your favourite player growing up, Stuart?
Kenny a bit. I'm going to say Kenny a bit, and I have to say Kenny a bit as well because Kenny gave me my second chance at Walsall. He signed me when he was manager at Walsall. Absolutely loved playing for him. I loved him as a person, and still now when I message him for little various things from time to time, I'm still so grateful, if you like, to him for giving me that second chance. And I don't think Kenny realises what a major part he played in changing my life, really. So forever grateful for Kenny Ibbott. And I have to say as well, just a fantastic player. And even when he was manager at Walsall and well into his 40s, he was still better than any player at Walsall. Yeah, in terms of ability. So everything's about levels. You ask many Wolves fans, they'll say he's arguably one of the greatest ever for Wolves, and many would say if he played for a Manchester club or a London club, he would have played many times for England.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great thing, isn't it? Because you mentioned about what an impact he had on your life. When you put that list up on LinkedIn last week, it was so heartwarming to see how many other players then come onto your feed.
And that's what we said earlier. Yeah. I don't think people realise how much it means, to have. It was like Fev did a little sign, and Ryan Bennett, and different people. I speak to or message Liam Lawrence every so often, and Liam had a real kind of tough upbringing, really, and he got into a few scrapes and everything, and he won't mind me saying that, but I recognised very early how talented he was. So it just gives you that little bit more patience. Yeah, it just gives you that little bit more patience and determination to help him, and to see someone like Liam go on to have the career that he's had and to play 40 or 50 games for the Republic of Ireland, whatever it is, to play in the Premiership, to go to Greece and play as well at top level. Yeah, it just means the world to me. But as I said, those lads that didn't make it, it was my privilege, if you like. It was my privilege and my honour to work with them. Yeah. That's the way I look at it. I don't look at it the other way. Although we had Stuart. Stuart was it was my privilege and my honour to play a part, if you like, in their development, and that's the job satisfaction that you can get. Yeah, that's the job satisfaction that it gives you. So yeah, for sure. Very, very fortunate. I've had some great times. I've had some tough times. I'm often asked, would you do it all again? And in all honesty, I don't know if I would. But whether I would or whether I wouldn't, I've still had some fantastic times. I've got some fantastic memories. As I say, I got some tough ones as well. But isn't that life? Isn't that life? Yeah.
Well, Stuart, we're glad that you did do it because you've had an amazing career so far. We're hoping that there are a few more chapters left in this book of life.
Absolutely.
Ahead for you, mate. We're all cheering you on for it. But thank you so much for your time today. We're going to make sure that we get the link for your LinkedIn profile. We're going to put it in the description below as well. So if there are any clubs,
very decent
looking
of
at
you. Yeah, and as I say, thank you. It's been good because I'm normally bouncing off the walls at this time of the day. I go to the gym in the morning, I do the housework, I get to this time, and I'm normally bouncing off the walls till the wife comes back from work. So it's been fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
Top man, Stuart. Look after yourself, mate. Thank you very much.
Take care. All the best, Dave.